They missed that. That was a great joke. I'm going to say it again, so you have to hear it again, Ellesmere. I'm so sorry. We we had some. My wife hates when I repeat jokes, but she's not watching, so we had some technical issues that we figured out. But it's like a secret value. You know, you can know that there is a secret value, but you can't know what the value is. It's hidden in the box. We should be good now for mute. Let me kill the music. We are in the game. We are in Dawnbreaker. And I just want to make sure I have everything checked. Anytime anything goes wrong, I get so nervous that all of my settings have suddenly gone wonky, but it looks like everything else is good. All right, there we go. Chad, it's Ellesmere. I don't know if you're aware of this. He's a big deal. And he took some time today to come talk to us. Thanks for hanging out with us, man.
Yeah, of course. Happy to be here.
This is our first. You are a first for the show. We are simultaneously streaming to Twitch and to YouTube Shorts.
Oh, let's go.
Everybody on YouTube is seeing this really beautiful vertical version of us. Well, the Twitch people just get this boring old horizontal version. So, we're definitely playing favorites. Okay, so as I mentioned to you before the show, we're gonna actually start the show. So I will do a countdown and start the show, and then we'll hit a ready check and start the key. Chat, we're probably not gonna have a lot of time to be able to watch chat while we're doing this. It's a lot like Hot Ones. If Hot Ones had the the chance for instant death at any time. Okay, so here we go. In 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to episode 18 of RaiderIO's Weekly No Leaver. I'm your host, Sean, and today I am joined by Wings is Up himself, Ellesmere. Thanks for being here.
Of course.
I want to start with the question that is on everybody's mind. When will we be getting the next installment of Ellesmere Plays the Music of Warcraft?
Yeah, that concert takes like a huge time investment from me, so I gotta carve out a chunk of time somewhere in order to make that happen. But I am definitely looking forward to it.
It's some of the best content. Like, I like to put it on at night. I have like a no electronics rule, but I really like music. I find music is soothing before bed. So sometimes I'll throw you on just before bed just to like calm the nerves from the day. So thank you for that.
Of course.
Yeah. We're going to hit a Dawnbreaker. For those of you new to the show, we run a key and we ask Ellesmere some questions. We're going to pelt him with questions while he tries to keep me alive. And I'm certain that as a man of your skill level, I will not be doing a route that you've seen probably ever before. So,
well, I'm playing with no add-ons in preparation for Midnight. So
I love that. I love that. Let's I do want to talk about Midnight. I definitely think it's something we should discuss, and we have a release date now. But I want to start with you first. How did your journey with Warcraft start, and what drew you to healing?
I actually started as a hunter.
Oh.
I started off initially as a hunter. I was a Tauren hunter in late vanilla, like right before BC. And I got started because both my best friend and my aunt played vanilla. And they loved the game and they were like, you gotta try it, you gotta try it. And I was like, okay, sure. And at the time I was like filled with extracurriculars, so I really didn't have much time. And obviously, WoW is a game that is a pretty big time sink, especially earlier on. And let's just say my parents were not thrilled once I started playing WoW because it immediately captivated me and started sucking in all my time. But I fell in love with the game immediately. And I didn't start healing until, when was it? It was, I played a priest, and it was at the end of vanilla. It was at the end of BC. So I started raiding in Zul'Aman and Karazhan, and then I switched to priest when the Black Temple hit. And once I started playing priest, and like the gameplay was just so different from hunter, and I was just like, this is what I'm supposed to do.
I found my place.
Yep.
I love that.
Oh, I'm gone.
Oh no, did you fall through the dungeon?
Yep, I fell through the boat.
I
Oh,
find that.
I fell through again.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, hold on.
Anybody who
Hold
voted for
on.
this dungeon to come back this
Here we
season, by
go.
the way, I hate you.
All right, we're good. I'm back.
I love
Oh, I
it.
also unbound my kick. I'm not allowed to have that in midnight either.
I love this. So no add-ons, no kick. This is
Yeah.
like a true pug experience for me. Flying through the boat. I love that. My nephew started playing WoW shortly after I did. I think he was also around BC. It might have been early Wrath, but I went with his mother, my aunt, to buy the game for him at what at the time was called a electronics boutique in Canada, which then became EB Games, which then became GameStop. I'm old, but the guy behind the counter, when she went to buy it, said that like she asked for the game, he gave it to her, and he said, you should probably just buy your son a bag of crack because that's how addictive this will be.
Yep. The game does not mess around with addiction. It is
No.
so addicting.
Yeah, it definitely does not. And that stayed true. He still plays today, and he loves it. He's a big fan of the game. Yeah. So you Black Temple was it. You were like, okay, this is what I was supposed to be doing. I can't believe you were a priest. I can't, like, in my mind, I was actually mentioning this to some friends earlier today because our teaser for the show was just Holy Paladin. And
Yeah.
there's no, like, in the Warcraft space, when you hear Holy Paladin, the only name you think is Ellesmere. And I want to know, like, when did you make that change from priest over to paladin?
So I've actually played priest probably longer than Pally because, or like in terms of the duration that I've mained it, I've been maining priest since, or like I mained priest all the way from end of BC to end of WAD. So I don't know how long that was, but yeah, right at the end of Warlords of Draenor in Hellfire Citadel, I took a break from the game, and then when I came back, I got recruited by BDG, and they already had a priest, but they needed a paladin, and so I was like, okay, I'll play paladin for you guys. And weirdly enough, I trialed there for like a week, and then my friends were like, hey, let's go make a guild on where was it? Stone Mall?
Okay.
Or Boulder Fist? I don't remember the name.
I'm on Stone. My guild's on Stone Mall.
Oh, there you go.
Like
yeah.
neighbors.
So, well, how long have you been on Stone Mall?
I joined this guild at the end of Aberystwyth, but they've been here 13 years.
Oh, yeah. So we were there for a brief stint in when was that? It was Gul'dan, so Nighthold.
Okay.
So yeah, Legion, and it was a guild called Bench, and I had a lot of fun with that guild. But basically, what had happened was BDG recruited me, and then I was there for a week, and then I left to go make this guild with my friends. And then, like 5 years later, I rejoined BDG, and they actually had forgotten that they had even trialed me in the first place. So it was kind of funny when I was like, "Hey, by the way, do you guys remember recruiting me like 5 years ago for a week?"
That's funny.
Yeah, but that's when I made the switch to Holy Pally. Was right at the end of WAD, and I don't know, something about Holy Pally in Legion was just so addicting. The spec was just so incredibly fun, really, really well designed, and there was nothing like the feeling of pressing Aura of Sacrifice on Agrimar and just blasting 10 billion HPS within 5 seconds. It was so addicting and so fun, and that's when I really fell in love with HPAL. And yeah, I mean, rest is history.
Never looked back. I love that. Did you write guides for Priest as well, or was the guide creation something that came with Paladin?
No, the guide creation started with Wings Up.
Okay.
So never actually messed around much with trying to teach people priests. I will leave that to Jack.
Yeah, that's we'll let somebody else take care of that. I love it. Let's talk a little bit about the creation of Wings is Up. I'm going to the front of the church. You can start asking, what is this cursed root shortly? But we'll start
Honestly, my multitasking is horrendous, so I've already forgotten everything that we've done.
here. All right, that
I'm
works.
trying to stay focused on talking and not sounding ridiculous while also trying
Nice.
to not int the key.
Nice. It's okay if you end. We have our producer Pico has asked me every episode to mix in at least one wipe because the keys go so fast.
I dare you.
We've not done it yet. So
Go ahead and try. I will not let you die.
challenge accepted.
You're
Let's
gonna
talk
have to
about.
pull like the entire courtyard. Also, I don't have my holy power displayed because when I turn off my add-ons, I forgot to turn on personal resource display.
That's
So
hilarious.
I just can't see my holy power, which isn't necessarily ideal, but it's okay.
Is holy power really that important? Every holy
Nah.
paladin in the chat right now is they're so upset.
Well, here's the thing about holy power is that like once you know every holy paladin knows once you get in kind of like this flow state where you just know exactly how much holy power you have at any given moment, even without looking, because you know you know which buttons generate and which buttons spend, and you just kind of get a rhythm to it.
Right.
So
I like that. What I want to talk about Wings is Up and what like drove you to want to teach essentially. That's what guide writing is. And so what was that? What sparked that in you to want to help others?
So I started streaming when I started pushing keys, and I was just getting like tons of questions all the time. And I think it was really more of a born out of necessity thing where I was answering the same questions over and over again. And I was just like, I should really just make something for this because I was a web developer and a graphic designer at the time. And I was like, screw it. I'm just going to make a little website and answer all these questions for people so that they have the information easily accessible. And yeah.
And that was it. You're like, I just don't want to have to keep answering these questions.
Yeah. I mean, I really like being a source of information for people and like explaining things and like letting people know or like explaining to people how I play the game. Because I don't know. I really don't know why. It's just kind of this satisfying thing for me where I like to help people learn.
Okay. Can you walk me through your process a little bit? Like from a new patch coming out, like what is your guide creation process look like?
It starts out just with testing, I test a million different builds. I am definitely more of a feely crafter rather than a true theory crafter. I leave the theory crafting for smarter people than me. But when it comes to like feely crafty, I just try different builds and see what feels good and see what doesn't. And then I sort of combine that with the existing theory crafter knowledge that gets shared to come up with the best build that I can.
Okay.
And then from there, it's like I study the dungeons, I figure out where the pain points are, and then I share that information.
Okay. How often through the course of a season do you update the builds and the information that you're giving?
So it depends on a few different things. The biggest thing is how passionate I am about HPAL and the season of M+ in general, right?
Mhm.
Because Wings is Up is a huge undertaking, and obviously I don't put any ads on it or anything, so it doesn't generate any revenue or anything. So it's really kind of like a passion project. But the more that I am passionate about HPAL, the more in depth the guide is that season, which I
Okay.
know isn't like the most ideal, but the reality is when like I have when the season is really not fun for me or when HPAL is just in a really bad state, I just don't have the motivation to update. Like obviously it'll still always be updated with relevant information. It's just how in depth that information is kind of changes based on how good HPAL is or how much I am passionate about that season, if that makes sense.
That makes a ton of sense. What's your favorite HPAL season to date, if you had to pick one? Like what
My
version?
favorite HPAL season?
Yeah.
It's got to be BFA season 4.
Oh, okay.
Now that does not, just so we're clear, that does not mean that is the best play style HPAL has ever. Oh, that's a nice orb.
Missed everything. You
That's
missed all the things.
That's definitely not the best HPAL has ever been. In terms of like its play style, but that is the most fun I've ever had playing HPAL.
Okay.
I know a lot of people are going to be like, what about Ashen Hollow?
I was gonna say
No,
what?
no, 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 no. Ashen Hollow was the worst thing that ever happened to Holy Pally. I swear to God. It. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing like the feeling of just pure dopamine that you got from doing 10 billion damage within like a 30-second window and beating DPS. Yeah, that was fun in its niche, but overall it was really unhealthy for the game, and the play style was basically 30 seconds of being a god followed by 3.5 minutes of being the saddest, most miserable version of a healer you will ever experience.
So sad.
So it really, yeah, the 3.5 minutes outside of Ashen Hollow was so bad that it just made it hard to enjoy the 30 seconds inside of Ashen Hollow.
Okay, yeah, I get that. That makes sense. We'll accept that answer. And BFA
If I
season
had to
4,
vote,
so good.
yeah, BFA season 4 was just so fun. If I had to vote for like my favorite iteration of Holy Pally playstyle wise, aside from Legion, I'm going to go ahead and not include Legion because that was a very unique playstyle that we haven't seen in a very long time. Legion owns. Very fun. And obviously I didn't play pre-Legion, but just going in the post-Legion era, I would say that the best iteration of HPAL playstyle-wise is actually currently live. This current iteration of HPAL is the best healing playstyle that we have had in a decade, or however long it's been since Legion. I don't know.
Okay.
Which is part of what makes me so passionate about beta currently. And like I've been pretty vocal against some of the changes that they've made, simply because they made such a great iteration of HPAL. It on live, it hurts me to see that they're kind of throwing that away and just completely redesigning everything, which is a bit unfortunate.
It's like that meme. Look what they've done to my boy.
Yeah, it's like Blizzard does have a bit of a track record with spending a long time making HPAL like really good, and then once they get it to like peak design, they'll just reinvent the wheel, and that has been a little frustrating. Like another example is Dragonflight Season 2. They had a really fun play style. We were a bit overtuned, but then when they went to nerf it, they ended up nerfing like the wrong things and changed the playstyle completely. And yeah, so I'm hoping that we can look at trying to maintain some of current live HPAL's rhythm and flow that people really enjoy.
Okay.
Going into midnight.
I was going to give you a break. I was going to wait till we were done the key to dive into the midnight stuff, but this is too good of a segue to pass up, sir. So we're going to dive into it right now. Hopefully you can midnight talk while we ration on. It's let's talk about some of the changes. So what about HPAL right now is so good that we're losing in midnight?
So I think one of the things that has made HPAL feel really good is the way that our hold on, this is the overlap. I can't have us die here, you know?
Chat is begging for it. They're like, pull more.
No. Go ahead, pull the whole courtyard. We will not die. I think the biggest thing that we're losing that obviously I've talked about is Crusader Strike, and I know a lot of HPALs don't even like Crusader Strike and are kind of happy to see it go. Because there has been a bit of a push from some of the HPAL community for more of a caster playstyle, or like less tied to melee, basically. And also Crusader Strike itself is not the most satisfying button to press, you know? Simply because it doesn't heal. But one of the great things about HPAL right now is that like it's very reactionary. Everything is instant cast, and the virtue windows with Flash of Light and fusions just feel really, really powerful and strong. Spot healing feels incredible. Your power within your cooldowns and like rising sunlight and everything, it just feels so good. And we're losing most of that, which is unfortunate. The more I've tested in beta, the more I've seen that like spot healing power in general is down significantly for healers, which does not feel good. And especially for HPAL, we lost Crusader Strike, and we have reduced our kit down significantly to where currently it's basically just Judgment and Holy Shock, and then you just don't really press any other button except Spenders, which has definitely reduced the complexity of the spec and the nuance of our rotation. And also with how much CDR they've put into HPAL, just baseline, they've baked a ton of CDR into Judgment and Shield of the Righteous. And because of that, it's caused a bit of an issue where our cooldowns are jumping around. So, like, for example, when you press Crusader Strike, it takes 4 seconds off of your Holy Shock, which is more than half the cooldown of Holy Shock. So, for players that aren't, like, really used to how much CDR that really is, they're just going to kind of see spells jumping all over the place in terms of what is available to press. And it'll make it hard to know, okay, what's the next button that I'm going to want to press, right? Because a lot of healing is playing one step ahead. You want to know, okay, before your next global happens, you want to know which button you're going to press already. And if a lot of your kit has so much CDR that it's just jumping your core rotational, like your 2 core rotational abilities around by more than half their cooldown, then it can be really hard to know what button you're supposed to be pressing next.
Right.
So that's been a pretty big source of frustration on beta. But yeah, I think that's pretty much the most frustrating thing. That and then mana management is a bit of a nightmare, simply because we're the only healer that doesn't have a filler spell or an active mana regeneration ability. So that's been causing some issues, especially with new Holy Light basically becoming this like massive mana bomb where you can just dump 10% of your mana into a single target bomb spot heal. But giving that to the only healer that does not have a way to manage their mana properly is not panning out great.
Right. How many iterations? Because we've seen some classes during the beta cycle, they've been iterated on. So there have been some, Blizzard made changes, and then they've gotten feedback, and they've made some changes to address the feedback. Has there been any changes for Holy Paladin, or is it the same since the first announcement?
There were in alpha, but ever since alpha, there has been very minimal changes to the spec, which has sort of been cause for concern. But who knows?
Right.
I'm hoping that we see some more significant changes, especially to the class tree. And I think the saddest thing for me was losing Rising Sunlight. I think spot healing had already been dragged down significantly, like I was talking about. And Rising Sunlight, I had always been vocal about, was one of my favorite talents that Holy Pally had ever had. And if you don't know what Rising Sunlight is, it's basically any time that we press Divine Toll or Wings, it makes it so that our next Holy Shock casts multiple times. So it casts like 3 times. So basically, anytime that we press a cooldown, we gain access to this really powerful spot heal that also acts as a big holy power generator. So it was a very versatile cooldown, or very versatile talent that had a lot of uses and just felt really good. And so that was definitely the biggest loss for HPAL recently. Was I think it was 2 weeks ago they removed that, and that definitely hurt me. I was very sad.
Right.
I will miss Rising Sunlight.
Can you tell us like why is spot healing so important as a healer? Because let's assume that maybe the person asking these questions doesn't understand anything about healing.
Yeah. So I mean, spot healing is basically like the ability to push one player's health bar up significantly or like impactfully with your buttons, right? You don't want, as a healer, you don't want to watch somebody getting owned, and then when you go to heal them, you can barely help them, right? So currently on beta, somebody gets hit for 30% of their health, or they drop from like 70 to 20%, right? And then they're at 20% health, and you're like, oh, I need to give them a big heal, right? And then I press Holy Shock, and it does 3% of their health. So it's like I have to spend, 10 globals to top them.
Yeah.
And it's just, it turns into this kind of grind of like nothing feels satisfying to press, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the big thing about spot healing is that you always want, as a healer, you always want every button to feel satisfying and impactful. And I think part of what Blizzard's goal is with reducing the number of buttons is to accomplish that, to make it so that the buttons that you do have do feel impactful and aren't just part of this machine that keeps people alive, rather than it just being this constant like, oh, I have to press all these globals to keep people alive. It should be like, I can press this and I actually feel the button. At least it depends on the healer, right? But Holy Pally has always historically supposed to have that feeling in its kit.
Okay.
It's not like, others. Well, I think every spec has had, because even Resto Druid, where it's like sort of a maintenance buff spec where you just have to like maintain hots. Once you actually have the hots there, every button is really strong, right? But HPAL, it's like, okay, even if you maintain all of your stuff, my wogs, my Word of Glories, and my Holy Shocks, and all of my core spot healing just don't push up health bars fast enough. They push up health bars pretty slow, and so it leads to this very dissatisfying gameplay where nothing really feels great to press, and instead it just kind of feels like this constant slog of trying to push people's health bars up over time.
Yeah, I like that. I'm glad you made that distinction, because it's not just, a lot of people see feedback on Twitter or wherever. Also, sorry, before I ask this question, we blew the doors off this key. Do you have a few more minutes to keep talking?
I got all the time in the world.
Perfect. Love to hear that. So yeah, we see feedback on Twitter, on the forums, in video format, and sometimes people can mistake what that feedback is saying. And sometimes the feedback is, oh, hey, these numbers are just really low. But what you're saying isn't just, hey, it feels really bad to do this. These heals are not doing a lot of healing, but also the fun in play, the play rotation is also not sparking joy. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean it's sort of both currently. It's undertuned, and I think that that's causing that same feeling. But also there are many instances of HPAL or other healer specs being properly tuned but feeling bad because of that issue. Because even though they're properly tuned, you might put too much power into their cooldown windows and too little power outside of that, or there's a million different things that it could be. Or it's like you put too much power into raid AoE healing, so then you have to take out power from their spot healing, and what that creates is this feeling of, even though I am doing good healing, it doesn't feel good to press. And I've experienced that a lot with people being like, hey, should I even press Light of Dawn? Because whenever I press it, I don't see anyone's health bars move. So it
Right.
doesn't feel like an actual AoE heal. And I have to explain, like, okay, you're either moving one person's health bar 40%, or you're moving 5 people's health bars 8%. So it's this, it's difficult to get people to enjoy the spec and really feel like their buttons are impactful. And I see players just never press Light of Dawn in raid because they don't think that the spell does any healing, because it moves health bars so little, right? You never actually notice it. When you press Light of Dawn, it barely moves anyone's health bars. And even though it's tuned properly, and it does, like, you should be pressing Light of Dawn in raid for AoE healing most of the time.
Right.
it doesn't even feel like you should press it because it does such little healing. So it's this weird combination of being properly tuned, but also being not satisfying to press. And so I think that is something that Blizzard really needs to look at going into Midnight, especially when we're going to have this sort of, we're going to have gameplay that's a bit more focused on, like, it's a bit more streamlined, right? We want less weak auras, we want less add-ons, we want more focus on gameplay, more focus on the buttons that you do have. Instead of having 40 buttons, you have 30 or 25 buttons, and then those buttons at least should be impactful. If we're doing this pruning, we need to make sure that the buttons that are left feel good to press.
Right.
And so, because that's going to be what makes this adjustment less whiplash for the player base, especially for healers. If you still have this same experience where these buttons that we're pressing don't feel good to press and don't feel like they have an impact, but we also just have less buttons, then it's going to kind of be the worst of both worlds.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's not great. So, and that's, I mean, we talked a lot about Raid here and the way that this feels in Raid, but, I would be remiss. You've played the game at the highest level, both Mythic Plus and Raid. What impact does this have in Mythic Plus where your heals are doing less, so you're having to spend more time healing? What are you losing in Mythic Plus now?
Well, okay, just to be clear. Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's just a tuning thing.
Okay.
Currently.
Okay.
I don't think, like, if healing is undertuned in M+, then they will make adjustments to dungeon damage.
Okay.
And so I don't think that's as big of a deal. Or they'll make adjustments to classes, whatever it might be. But I do think that the bigger problem is spot healing in general. I've talked to some other healers, and spot healing in general is just weaker. Once again, this is sort of like the experience of cooldown power versus out of cooldown power, and how much we allocate to healers' cooldowns. So if healers have too much power within their cooldowns, then they have to take away power outside of their cooldowns. So you want your cooldowns to feel impactful, but you also don't want them to be so impactful that it ends up making your kit outside of your cooldowns really weak.
Right. Ashen
So
Hollow.
there's this balance, Ashen Hollow, exactly. So there's this balance that you need to find between those 2 points for healers. And beta has definitely not accomplished what Blizzard kind of said they were going to accomplish. So Blizzard said that their goal was to remove some power from cooldowns and put a little bit more into base. It actually kind of feels like we just stripped the base but didn't touch the cooldowns. The cooldowns still feel powerful, but now the base just feels really weak. Again, this is kind of just from Holy Pally perspective, and I don't know if that's kind of just a tuning thing. We might see that change with tuning. I also know that the bigger problem for healers currently is that it's really hard to test stuff with the current iteration of the UI. And I know that kind of opens up a whole new can of worms. But
Yeah.
I can't discuss healing without also discussing the UI, because part of what has made healing feel so bad on beta, I wouldn't even say part of, I'd say the majority of what has made healing feel so bad on beta, and why you're hearing a lot of healers speak up about beta issues more than previous betas. You know, I've played every beta since the dawn of time, and extensively. And I can tell you without question that healing feels significantly worse than ever before. And that's not to say that they can't fix it in time. I don't know if they can or not. I do think that Blizzard definitely took on more than they should have in too quick of a timeline with these UI changes. They kind of forced it on themselves. Whether or not they can get it done, we'll have to see. But I think that healers are definitely going to feel it the hardest because of how much healers have to use the UI when it comes to party frames and what is displayed and how we can interpret information. Healers have to interpret a lot more information at every given second than other roles. And because of that, and because of everything that you have to be watching, the less control we have over how that information is displayed, the harder our role is going to be. So naturally, when we're making these massive UI adjustments, the people getting hit hardest are going to be the healers. And especially with party frames in the current state that they're in, which is pretty poor, I'm not going to lie. It's really made it difficult for us to focus on how healing feels because we're spending so much time just trying to interpret information in this poor setting. So I think that it's difficult. You know, I can sit here and be like, healing is in a terrible state, which it does feel that way, but I genuinely do not know how much of that is because of the UI and how much of that is because of tuning, like class tuning, or how much of that is just because of dungeon design or whatever it might be. So Blizzard's kind of in this weird situation right now where until they get their UI up to where it needs to be, the healer feedback is going to kind of be all over the place, especially when it comes to different specs, because certain specs, I'm not going to name names, but certain specs use the party frames a lot less than other specs. So there's this one spec that starts with D and ends with C in its shorthand form. And that spec uses frames very little. And for some reason, that spec is feeling pretty good on beta. And every other spec is not.
Oh, weird.
So and then of course you have the whole like druid issue where you've got HOTS that are kind of you've lost the ability to put HOTS in specific spots on your frames and to organize them in certain ways. And so it's just kind of this mess of information on your frames currently that's making it really hard to really tell how healing feels on beta. So I think that top priority for Blizzard, before they even worry about healer balance or whatever, I think healer balance is going to be all over the place and healer feedback is going to be all over the place until we actually get a functional set of party frames that does the things that we need to do. And that has to include buff and debuff whitelisting / blacklisting. And that has to include HOTS / buff organization system. So once we have those in place, then we can start really feeling how healers feel properly instead of what we're currently getting, which is, you know, a bit of a jumbled mess of information.
Right. And they have, like Blizzard has mentioned, you know, these changes are coming. It's a new world for all of us, but none of it is existing in a vacuum. And I love that you highlighted that. Like, yeah, you're like, okay, this feels bad, but does it feel bad because it feels bad? Or does it feel bad because I can't tell what's happening?
Yeah, it's a very weird situation that we've never been in before. And I think it's difficult because, you know, all I want to do right now is like yell into the void and just like be like, here are the 5 million things wrong with healing. But I can't rationally know, you know, even with hours and hours spent on beta, it's too hard to tell currently. The information is not being displayed well, and we just don't have a good testing ground.
Yeah.
So until we get a good testing ground, you're really going to get very mixed feedback, which I've been seeing. You know, some healers are like, this is awesome. And then actually, I don't think I've seen any healers say this is awesome. I'm trying to be nice here. I think general sentiment is that healing is in a pretty bad state, but I do think that a lot of that is because of the UI and not because of class design.
Right.
But I could be wrong. It could be both. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, and there's no way to know. And it's this weird like world that we're in because a lot of add-on devs are sort of holding off on working on add-ons for party frames. Not that they can touch a lot of that information anyway. I made a joke about secret values in the pre-show, but not that they can touch a lot of that. But I think a lot of them are holding off with the expectation that Blizzard is going to be making adjustments. And so why put the work in now to find a way to adjust party frames as they are in their current state if in 2 weeks or 3 weeks we're going to get a whole new aura filtering method or new APIs that we can use. So it is really tough. It's frustrating. As a healer, let's try to shift the focus a little bit because I definitely sense that healer frustration. I get that and I feel it. How do you feel? Because I need healers. I'm a bad tank. I need healers to be good. Um, so how do you feel overall though about Midnight and the pruning changes, the removal of combat solution, weak auras and such? Basically, just weak auras. The only thing we deleted, but the solution of combat add-ons and like the general philosophy. How do you feel about that?
So this is going to come from a very 0.01% perspective.
Yeah.
And I try my best to listen to information from all sources and to get a well-rounded opinion based on everybody that I talk to, whether it's from casuals who don't even play M+, to world first raiders and everything in between. But it can be hard because obviously I am a bit biased. But from what I've seen in the community and from what it feels myself, I think that okay, my brain just totally lost focus while I was trying to preface that. Can you ask the question again?
Yeah. How do you feel about the general philosophy change that Blizzard is making with the removal of complexity and the removal of combat add-ons?
Yes, thank you.
You're
So
welcome.
the removing, I actually am gonna differ from a lot of world first raiders.
Okay.
In their opinion that spell or class complexity is, well, I've actually heard a lot of differing opinions when it comes to that. I think that oftentimes people associate number of buttons with complexity of spec, right? And I think that that is wrong pretty much 100% of the time. And I could point to many different examples of that, but basically, if you have 40 buttons that interact one way, that is no different from having 20 buttons that interact two ways. Or if you have, I think that people are like, oh, because I have 40 buttons, that's what feels like WoW to me. And I get that, but also WoW has gone through many prunings before. You look at Warlords of Draenor, they did the same thing. And button pruning inherently does not decrease class complexity. It depends on how they redesign the buttons that they do keep, right? If they keep all the buttons that they keep the same and just take out 10 or 15 buttons, then yes, that would lead to a spec becoming more simplistic. However, that's often not the case. Usually what happens is when they prune these buttons, they also make the buttons that you do get to keep a little bit more intricate. For example, HPAL, there's now more CDR stuff, which obviously is an actual complaint of mine, and I don't like. But that doesn't mean that they're not doing stuff and trying stuff, right? They are trying to make the kit that is retained more engaging to play around. Whether or not they accomplish that on a spec to spec basis is, who knows? It'll vary wildly based on class designer, and some people will be really happy, and other people will be very sad. And I think that if I'm Blizzard, what I'm trying to do is make the buttons that are retained significantly more engaging to play around. I think that people should try to avoid conflating the amount of keybinds that you have with how difficult or complex your spec is, because that's a pretty outdated concept. And many games have shown that is not the case. So I do think that the reduction of keybinds in WoW, especially as a healer who has, I have like 40 keybinds, I do think that it's a bit much, and I have no problem with pruning some spells that should be pruned. Whether or not Blizzard prunes the correct spells for that spec is out of our control. So again, it's sort of one of those same things where it's like, conceptually, Blizzard is right. It just comes down to how they execute it. So we'll have to see. I don't think that I think that some people will be happy and some people will not be, and that'll vary a lot. Yeah. And I think the same thing for add-on removal, right? Like conceptually, I understand why they're doing it, right? There is nothing I hate more than wiping to a boss because somebody did not update their stupid weak aura pack that has 700 weak auras in it, and you have to update it every other day, and there's versions that need to be in sync, and all the weak auras just flash on your screen and do stupid shit. And don't get me, like, I hate it. I hate it more than anything else. That drives me absolutely insane.
Yeah.
But that is also kind of more of a niche problem than a lot of people realize. A lot of people are like, oh, these packs are required. But it is important to remember that those packs that are required are generally mythic rating. And that is like 0.1% of the player base. An extraordinarily small percentage of the player base even steps foot in here. And what Blizzard needs to remember is that if they cannot very specifically pinpoint the APIs that they need to break in order to stop those from happening, but still allow the rest of the game to be untouched, then it's going to have massive, massive ripple effects that will hurt the vast majority of players that don't even step foot into any situation where those would be required. I also understand that for devs, it's a nightmare trying to create these fights around these weak auras and add-ons that exist. So I get why they want to do it, right? And I think that conceptually it is correct what they want to do. Their goal ultimately is the right goal. What I'm concerned about is both the timeline with how they're going to accomplish it and how they're going to accomplish it. I think that Blizzard has not iterated on their base UI in 20 years significantly. Like, it's been pretty much the same awful base UI for decades, and they've relied heavily on add-ons helping them out for that. And that's okay, right? Because add-ons did that job. And that was just kind of how World of Warcraft worked. And so the biggest problem is that the base UI never being iterated upon made it so that now if we're trying this add-on purge, this add-on purge should not even be considered until there is a very functional set of replacements for all the things that they're breaking. And currently we are seeing that that is nowhere even close. All of the base versions of these add-ons that, you know, the party frames are a nightmare. The details replacement, the damage meters, healing meters are a nightmare. Everything is extremely lacking in substance and functionality. And so I am very surprised that Blizzard didn't want to get all of this UI stuff working and tested and on live servers and everything before they started stripping down these APIs. So what they're doing now is they're trying to rush it all at once. So we're trying, not only are we introducing a full new UI that is going to have tons of bugs, let's be real. We just did Dawnbreaker and I flew through a boat. And
nobody noticed that though. That was you were very cool about it.
And it's like there will be tons of bugs with the UI. And it would be really nice if we could get the UI up to a point where people can play without add-ons and be happy before we start removing the ability to play with add-on.
Yeah.
So
that's a good point. And the cooldown manager, I think, is a good example of that, right? Because they launched the cooldown manager in 11.1.5 to not much fanfare, but there was other alternatives. We had weak aura packs available to us, so it could exist, it could coexist while they worked on it and iterated on it to get it to a point where it was good. And I think a lot of us expected that same thing to happen with the rest of the add-on removal, especially based on interviews where they said that flat out. But that has changed. And Ian came out, he gave the blog post where he explained why they didn't want to have a whole tier or a whole 2 tiers or a whole expansion where they were designing simplistic boss fights to match the ability of what the world will look like without weak auras. And I guess that's my question to you is, if in order to build up their offerings, their in-game offerings alongside what we have now, how would you have felt if the raid tiers were slightly easier for those people who are using weak aura packs?
I would have loved it. There's literally who cares? Like, who cares? Like, that is such a 0.01% problem that we're talking about. It's like, you know what? If people want to build weak auras that cheese the fights for you, then it is what it is. And some people will use them and some people won't. And oh well, you know. And I don't know. I think that that's such like a, if we have to, it's better to go through one expansion of that. And also, let's not act like they can't do it, right? Let's look at the last fight of this last tier. Dimensius was like the most badass, awesome fight ever, and we had access to the most absurd weak auras and you know, cheese add-on systems imaginable, right? But it just, I don't know. It they were still able to create this amazing fight that was perfectly tuned for Race to World First. And I understand that it makes their life harder. Absolutely. But it's really dangerous what they're doing now, because you're not just impacting the Raiders, right? Before, it was only going to impact the Raiders, right? If you have these cheese weak auras or whatever, it is basically only affecting Mythic Raiders and a little bit of Heroic Raiders that, you know, feel the need to install these weak aura packs in order to get AOTC or whatever it might be. And I understand that, right? It's not ideal. But what is way less ideal is impacting 100% of the player base with these massive, massive changes that are going to brick all of these add-ons that people have been using for decades, not having suitable replacements for them, and leaving everybody kind of lost. And you know, weak auras especially, the loss of weak auras is going to be felt by every community, even the ones that did not get impacted whatsoever by these add-on changes, you know, by the removal of these niche 1%, you know, fight solving weak auras. I understand that those were problematic, but by stripping it so, you know, carelessly, they are going to cause a lot more harm to a lot more people than if they had just been like, you know what, suck it up, Raiders. You're going to have one more expansion of, you know, weak auras telling you what to do if you want. And then we will test the base UI during that. And then in the next expansion, we will actually be able to properly do that. But instead, we're just getting this like super rushed thing where they're going to be stripping add-ons. We're going to have a lot of collateral damage in tons of areas, because people often think, oh, why can't they just disable this one thing, right? Just don't give them access to this. Just don't give them access to that. But the reality is that these APIs, it's a 20-year-old game, and these APIs are a cascading effect. One thing that you think, okay, let's just use this one tiny API, we'll just strip this. Now, all of a sudden, that breaks like 40 things that have nothing to do with that boss fight or that mechanic or whatever it is that you were trying to pinpoint. You know, okay, let's strip the ability for chats to read macros that talk to each other. Oh, we just broke all RP weak auras immediately, because that's also how RP's weak auras accessed APIs. It's like there are these million tiny cogs that are turning, and if you stop one from turning, it stops hundreds of others. And a lot of people don't realize just how what's the word I'm looking for? Fragile. Just how fragile that ecosystem is. And so that's why you're seeing weak auras and all these major add-ons being like, we can't even develop with this, right? Because even though you would think Blizzard's not, you know, Blizzard said they're only limiting this, so why can't you just, you know, it's not that simple. It's infinitely more complex than that. And it's going to end up breaking a lot more than just what was intended to break if we rush it like this. And that's the problem that I have with how Blizzard is going about this, is they're trying to rush it too fast. They're going to break a bunch of shit they don't mean to break, and they're not going to have the time or resources to fix it because they've rushed everything. And they also don't even have functional UI replacements for these things that they're breaking yet. So it's just kind of a perfect storm of issues that they are kind of self-inflicting by trying to rush this expansion, instead of getting testing working stuff going during the expansion and then, you know, launching it the next one.
Yeah. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of buckets here. Let's play Dev for a day. Ellesmere Blizzard says, "Hey, come work for us. You are now a professional Lua coder with 30 years of experience." I feel like I'm running a ChatGPT prompt. What would you do? You come into the team. How would you fix or course correct where we're at right now? What one change would you make?
That's an impossible question. There are like 5 million things that need to change in an extraordinarily short amount of time. So I would probably, the one change I would make is extending the deadline by 3 years, because there is absolutely 0% chance that you will get everything done that they say they're going to get done in the next 2 months, you know?
Right. Yeah.
It's just impossible, you know? And it's not that the goal isn't good, it's just an impossible task.
Right.
There is no possible chance that they're even going to come close to what they said that they would be able to accomplish, and I will die on that hill. There's just no way. I would bet every single thing that I own that there is no chance that they're even going to come close, because there's just no way. There's no way. They've created and that's not to say again that the goal is bad. It's just impossible in the timeline that they've given themselves.
Yeah, they have, especially with the release date, March 3rd, March 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
I hate that calendar. Yeah, we're coming up to it very tight. My dog is losing her mind, so I apologize if you can hear her in the background.
No, you're good.
It's a lot to deal with. And I want to highlight, because obviously you're very passionate about the game, and you know you're concerned and you're worried, and you know you're our multi-paragraph king on Twitter, I think. But all of this, none of, like, it's not anybody who's listening or anybody who's reading your feedback. It's not coming from a place of like anger. You're genuinely concerned about this game that so many people play and love, right? It's
of course.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason I write in paragraphs and talk so much is because I want to make sure that people genuinely understand where I'm coming from and what I am trying to say as clear as I can, because I know that it's really easy to misinterpret what I'm saying. And especially when I'm giving feedback like this, it's really easy to just be like, you know, oh, just a fucking doomer that, sorry for cursing. It's just a doomer that, you know, doesn't love the game anymore and is just, you know, but that's not it. I'm extremely passionate about this game, and I want everybody to enjoy it to the fullest. And I do my best to give feedback where I can. I have been pretty silent recently about beta, simply because I know that I'm a bit irrational right now, and I'm very frustrated with the state of the UI and healing in general. And I'm trying to just give the devs a little bit of time to see what they do before I start really, you know, letting them hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't like to do that, and because I know that they're doing their best with the cards that they've been given, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I am hyper passionate about this game, and about Holy Pally, and about healing in general. And I think that Blizzard's heart is in the right place with these changes, even though a lot of people are being a bit disingenuous and being like, oh, this is just for console or whatever. Like, even if it is about console gaming, like, whatever, I don't know. The core concept of being less reliant on add-ons, and stripping and reducing the number of keybinds from the absurd 40 plus amount that it currently is, those are not bad concepts inherently, regardless of console or no console or whatever it might be. Those are good concepts. I'm purely concerned with their timeline and how they're executing. So we'll see. If Blizzard is able to follow through on everything they said, I will eat my hat.
Okay, no hat eating required, but if that does happen, can we get you back on the show for that?
Absolutely, 100%. I will come back on the show and I will say I was wrong about everything. Blizzard is the greatest company of all time, and I should never have second guessed them.
And this hat is delicious. Let's I want to end on a positive note, and I do want to be cognizant of your time, so I'll wrap this up. And I'm pretty sure my dog is going to eat something in the other room. So let's assume Blizzard, they stick the landing. Midnight comes out and everything is in a functional state, and we just have some fine tuning to do. What does the future hold for Ellesmere?
I will be playing midnight, regardless of what happens. I will be updating Wings is Up regardless of what happens. I'll be streaming. I will be enjoying the game that I love. Or if it's all a complete disaster, maybe you'll just see me become a fellowship main. We'll see.
Nice. Let's go. Bigger mains in the chat. Let's hear it. I love it. Sir, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. It's a real treat anytime I get to hear you speak about the game that you love.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I had a wonderful time.
Excellent. And you kept me alive that whole time. I swear, that's impressive stuff. That's how we tell the quality of the healer. Can you tell everybody where they can find you?
Sure. You can find me on Twitch, Ellesmere_gaming, and YouTube, Ellesmere Gaming, Twitter, Ellesmere Gaming. Although I try not to use that awful site too much.
Yeah, it's
basically just for feedback.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's where you can find me.
Perfect. Listeners, thank you so much for spending your time with us today. I truly do appreciate it. If you want to race against us in a Dawnbreaker, our Mythic Plus replay will be in the description of this video or the podcast if you choose to listen to it. You can throw it into your Mythic Plus replay system in the game and see if you can beat our time. We were pretty quick, so you might have a hard time doing that. And we'll be back next week with another guest and some more talking. Remember, in a world where you can be anything, be kind. Okay, that's the end of the recorded show. Chat, you're popping off. But I got to feed my dog, so we're going to say goodbye really quick. Thank you all so much for coming. You were all amazing. I love you. So many people here. Well, Grandma, big fan. Okay. Goodbye, chat.
Bye, guys. Thanks for having me.